It's time for Inside the Patch with your Las Vegas Raiders. Here's Gnarley Charley.
Welcome back to Inside the Patch, brought to you by ESPN 1430, your Valley local sports leader. I believe with the floating beer in his background, I have Raider Cody. What is going on, man?
Gnarley Charley. Good to be back, and it's good to be back 1-0.
We're celebrating. Before we get into all the minutia of last week, what do you got going this week for the Buffalo Bills? Are you guys planning anything? I know you got big stuff planned for the Pittsburgh game.
Nothing for away games, but I know Buffalo's big time. So if you're in Buffalo, I'm the type of fan that actually likes to enjoy the environment of other fan bases. And Buffalo, I think, is on my list because I'd love to slam some people on some tables. So, yeah, enjoy that. But, yeah, home opener weekend is our big one. So, blackoutdivision.com. We're throwing night before parties, interviews with former Raider Marquette King. And we have party bus to the game, pregame parties, tailgate parties, after parties in the stadium. Too much stuff. Exactly. You're
your party hookup. If you're in Las Vegas and there's a home game, you got to follow Raider Cody. I mean, he's got the hookups. He knows how to do this correctly. Okay, one of the funniest things I want to talk about, well, not funny that Aaron Rodgers got hurt, but there's a bar in Green Bay. I don't know if you heard about this. They offered a special deal. So if Aaron Rodgers starts for the Jets and you are in the bar before the game starts and you set up a tab, if the Jets lose, the tab is covered for free.
Oh,
right.
And so Rodgers goes down.
Rodgers goes down, and these poor guys were just like, oh, Dom Perignon, bring it on, went crazy. And then everyone knows what happened. And
that's
the
amazing.
Jets win, and the drunk, they got super drunk too. These guys thought they had it, and all of a sudden there's like, oh, no. Oh,
I think everyone did. I think as soon as Zach Wilson came in the starting lineup and you see him getting carted off, I can't imagine the amount of alcohol that was flying out of the back of that bar.
Oh, and and everyone's thinking they're winning. They got this. And all of a sudden, wah, wah, wah. So
that's awesome.
It's one of those stories that it makes you just laugh because it was so incredibly crazy. All right, let's go. Let's go to Denver, Mile High Stadium. The Raiders play the Broncos. And what was your overall opinion? What did you feel about this?
Well, it's week one, so it's hard to judge. And overall for me, it's hard to judge just because of all these games. Speaking of like the Jets and Bills, each team, I think in almost every single game wasn't quite themselves. There's a couple in there that seem legit. The Niners we know are going to be a good team, unfortunately. And, they came out swinging and they played well. But like the Rams overtaking the Seahawks, there's so many upsets. Thursday Night Football with the Chiefs losing. Week one, there's everyone's shaking the cobwebs off. Nobody has a solid game plan. And it seems like it's almost the luckiest team at the end is who gets the win. I would say overall, that's not necessarily the case for us because it was going to be a close game. We knew it would come down to the wire. We had beat them six straight. I'm thinking in my mind, they're due. This might be the first one that we lose to them as the Las Vegas Raiders. But we pulled it off. Defense had some shaky drives, but they stepped up at the end when we needed them to. Jimmy G stepped up when we needed him to. And unfortunately, Jacoby Myers did as well, but he took a pretty good lick for it. But I think overall as a team, we crushed it. Nate Hobbs back in the slot, felt like he was in his element. DBs were good. Our rookie DB was out there getting after it. Unfortunately, it came with a few penalties, but I think that's what comes with being aggressive. I'd rather him be all over the guy getting a penalty than chasing him 5 yards behind him. So
it felt different. I know it's been one game, but last year it just kind of felt like, I don't know, that I wasn't quite sure. I didn't feel confident about us finishing the game, obviously. Yeah. And I was nervous. And this, I was like, well, anytime someone misses an extra point, I go, oh.
It's gonna be one of those
I kind of had that in the back of my mind. But then, our Garoppolo, he showed a lot of Garoppolo. You know what I mean? It's like, gosh, he's finishing his plays.
He did what he was asked, right? He did his job. He wasn't supposed to go out there and be the flashy guy. He created space in the pocket with his legs, moved around well. Obviously he picked up the first down on his legs when we needed it at the end. But again, it wasn't like a flashy stat line like, oh, let's go pick him up on my fantasy team type game. But he got the job done. The turnover in the red zone obviously isn't something we wanted to see. But I think that'll change. It's growing pains, and overall, Jimmy G, I was satisfied with him. The first drive though, going down and seeing Brian Hoyer in there, the first drive, I was like, my worst nightmare's already here, but it worked out.
When he was in the tent, I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Like already?
Really? Yeah. But it's like, okay, so that nothing like Green Bay. So, I mean, not Green Bay, but nothing like the Jets had to go through. So at least ours came out okay.
Yeah.
But okay, so now when we go to Buffalo, I mean, there's the three Joshes. There's Josh Allen, there's Josh Jacobs, and there's Josh McDaniels. McDaniels. So which one is going to be the best Josh? That's where I'm out of the
well,
three
two's
J's,
better than one, so that already goes on our side. I definitely think Josh Jacobs is primed for a big game. A lot of people say, he was shaky. Yeah, he missed all of camp, but I think he's in shape. You could tell by the load that he took on in week 1, and I was really happy to see that. And we played a stout defensive front in Denver. So going to Buffalo, we saw the Jets carving them up. We saw an out-of-shape Breece Hall breaking loose, 60, 70-yard runs. So the change of pace, I think, on the defensive side of the ball is going to open Josh Jacobs up to be the number 1 Josh this weekend. And Josh Allen, obviously being a local kid, big fan of his, just not this weekend.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's like he's got some Valley roots here, obviously Fireball, and I don't know. I
he's
love
talented.
him. I love his family.
He's talented. He's kind of like the closest thing to like a Patrick Mahomes. You don't really know what he's going to do. He's going to be all over the place. Max Crosby's going to be chasing him all game long, but he's also going to take a ton of risky throws. And that's where I also want to see our secondary step up and get the ball. So that's where, we see the penalties. We see the aggression. Marcus Peters, Jacorian Bennett, Marcus Epps flying around out there in center field. I really want to see these guys attack the ball, especially with Josh Allen. Always be aware of the quarterback, know where he's at, and know where that ball is. And I think there's no reason we can't come up with a couple turnovers on defense.
And Josh likes to run too, and we got to be aware of that because that's a killer for us. I mean,
he's tough as heck too, man.
Oh, he reminds me of Chris Pratt. Like, I don't want Jurassic Park Chris Pratt. I want more Parks and Recreation Chris Pratt, But I am a fan of Josh Allen, but I'm also a fan of the Raiders, and that's a little bit more important. How did you feel about like our defensive backs on the game against Denver?
Well, Merrick had a few rough drives, and it was made up for, I guess, in his open field tackling. Him, Hobbs, Marcus Epps sliding up in there. As well as even our linebackers, aided them in a lot of that. But overall, defensively, that whole group is basically new besides Merrick. He's the only one carrying over. So they got to find themselves in sync as well. It's not just about your own coverage. It's about who's the nearest guy to you, because you can't just count on one-on-one the entire time. You got to count on those guys on the back end to have your back. And I think Epps does a good job of that. And I want to see Merrick with a little bit more pep in his step this week. I don't want to say he looked lazy. I used that word during the game because I was frustrated with it. But he could use a little more spark out there. It looks like he's, behind guys. I don't like to see defenders chasing guys with the ball. You know what I mean? They need to be around him. They need to be getting hands on him within that first or second step after the catch. And that wasn't quite the case. So this is one of those, again, I want to see the turnovers, and that's going to, prove a lot to me from the defensive backside.
It seemed like Epps was really a coach out there too. I seemed like he was really telling people what to do.
Yeah, he should be a leader too. Coming back from a Super Bowl team, basically, that's the guy we need. And I'm excited for him, but I want to see the ball in his hands. I want to see him making big plays. He made some great tackles, but unless you get the ball in your hands as a defensive back, you're not fully doing your job to the best. So
Hunter Renfrow, 0 catches. He said all the right things to the media. Yeah, 0 targets, 0 catches. He's saying I'd rather have 0 catches and a win than 100 yards and a loss. And I believe him. I feel that. And I think this week it's probably going to change because of the receiver rotation.
Yes. Myers will most likely be out, right? So we're definitely going to see Renfrow get a little bit more of a load. I think he only had 12 or 13 snaps, like not even a quarter of the offensive snaps. That's probably going to bump up. He's probably going to see more than half. But, even I would rather have 0 targets and a win is kind of press talk, right? I guess that's what you're supposed to say.
Exactly.
I'm sure he'd choose a win over anything, absolutely. But there's no reason that he wouldn't choose to go out there and be one of the reasons that we got the win, right? So,
right.
With Myers out, yes, his load's going to go up. But when Myers comes back, I want to see him get involved. There's no reason. I understand we ran a lot of 12 personnel, a lot of 2 tight ends. Fullback was in the game more than half the snaps. I understand the formation, but there's no reason with Jimmy G, with Devontae Adams, with Myers, with Mayer, Hooper, Wilkerson, you have all these targets, even Josh out of the backfield. There's no reason that we shouldn't be spreading out more on offense and getting the ball into more receivers' hands and not seeing 2 guys get 75% of the targets. So that's one thing from the offense. I want to see just a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Flexibility, I guess, in our personnel.
Yeah. Exactly.
And change it up. We shouldn't be running 12 personnel the whole game because then they're going to start zoning in on Josh. And when they do, take that, flip it, and open up the offense a little bit. That was our biggest thing last week that I hated. It seemed like the entire offense was running through the line of scrimmage. And you can only do that for so long until they stop you every single time because they're working within a window of 5 yards. So open that thing up. Right. Jimmy's strong point isn't the deep ball, but he can throw it down the field when he needs to. So we need to figure out a way to make that happen and help out Josh Jacobs, open up that defensive front and let him get some space.
I'm excited about Adams, and I think this is going to be his week. I think he's going to be a difference maker, of course. And then, there were a couple times when I was so afraid we were going to come out there and be the typical Raiders 3 and out, run. And he threw the ball first down. I was like,
not 1 3 and out this game. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
Felt that there was a change. Like maybe I'm starting to believe in this Josh McDaniels thing. It's like, I'm having a hard time with it, but I'm winning makes you change a little bit and you start to think more about it.
We want to be wrong. If we have doubts in players, coaches, schemes, and we find out that it worked overall, then we're happy with being wrong. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Then we don't mind. So we're going into Buffalo, and I saw this thing and said, Buffalo, the media picks, and not one person picked the Raiders. They were throwing up scores. Like 12 of them, all Buffalo. And I know that sucks that Buffalo's going to be really hungry because, man, they just lost to the Jets. And,
they're probably mad.
But, here we come. I feel like we are still the team that's overlooked a lot.
I agree. And when you're talking about the picks, normally we always have one in there, and that's Maurice Jones-Drew. Usually he always picks us to beat almost any team, right? He's kind of like the James Jones of the media. Loves his Raiders, always going to pick us. This week didn't happen. Last week we had 2 pick us, and I think the Raiders pulled the receipts on that after the game, which I love. I love a petty Raiders social media is my kind of social media. So hopefully we can pull those receipts after the game and enjoy it 2-0.
2-0. And then I can't not mention Max Crosby, how he really does set the tone for our defense. There were a couple, to where and then he takes one arm and just throws this giant lineman out of the way. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Was it McGlinchey? I think it was McGlinchey that the Broncos picked up from the Niners, who was also the guy, right, that a lot of Raider fans, I think almost even including myself, I liked him, wondered why we picked Colton Miller instead of McGlinchey, right? So it's one of those things. I love Max, and I love what he brings to the table, but he's not near as good of a force without some decent help on the other side. Obviously, the Chandler Jones situation is a super messy situation. We'll see how that plays out. I don't expect him to play it down unless significant changes happen over a course of time. So expect him out, for a few more weeks to the minimum. But
I don't even know. We don't even know if we're getting the real story. So we don't know.
We don't know. Yeah, it's all over the board, and I think the Raiders are taking the right route in not airing anything out and keeping everything in-house on their end. Obviously, Chandler's taking a different approach, but there's always 2 sides to every story. The truth's always somewhere in the middle. And I just hope, everything gets figured out and both sides are happy in the end. But in the meantime, our first-round pick, Tyree Wilson, I was it's only one game, so you can't say too much. But I was really disappointed in his play. Yeah, he came off the ball really slow. I'm hoping that he's working with the coaching staff and even his fellow defensive linemen on getting in there a little sooner. You know, I mean, he was a step or two behind Max off the line every single snap. So, you know, Malcolm Kuntz came off the edge a little bit and gave us a spark on that side, but we need the other side to step up because Max can't do it by himself.
Right, of course. And that's, I was watching Wilson. I would sometimes just watch Wilson. And I was like, oh, come on, man. And you're like, it's a full one count that he wasn't even ready. Like, he wasn't sure if he should go in or not. You know, that's what I felt like.
Yeah. I don't know if you didn't want to, you know, offsides or anything like that or encroachment, but I would rather take a penalty because he's trying to jump that ball more than, you know, being a step too slow every single play.
Exactly. But I do have great hope for him. And, you know, go Raiders, man. That's all we got. So we got Buffalo. We got Buffalo. We're going into Tatanka, and I'm excited. I might bust a table or two. I'm not sure how I'm going to celebrate.
Hey, one thing, you should bust a table because I'm just glad we're playing Buffalo in September and not in December, right? Because it would be a completely different weather story.
That's true. I mean, nobody wants that. And I still have that nightmare because I believe it was like the same day as Desert Storm started because it was my birthday. It was January 16th, and this has to be in the 90s, early 90s. But we lost to Buffalo 53-3 in the playoffs, and it was one of my worst ever experiences. It was you were probably 3, maybe.
What year was that?
I don't know. It was the day that Desert Storm started, so it'd have to be 91, maybe. I was
-1.
19. Yeah, so I mean, I said early 2000. No, it was like definitely early 90s. But it was a playoff game, and they just killed us. And we'll have those same uniforms on, so I'm a little nervous about that.
Yeah, but we got to break that streak.
Coming up, we're going to talk to Philip Filippiano, who played for the Raiders. He was number 41 in the 70s, and then he went to the Buffalo Bills. And so,
yes, that's a good one.
We're going to get his perspective coming up later on the show. But Raider Cody, man, thank you so much. One more time, tell me all your stuff. What's it called again?
blackoutdivision.com. Everything's there. Most of our events are free. RSVP now. Our spots are filling up. Hundreds of Raider fans the night before home games. We load up a party bus. We pack out the tailgate. We enjoy the game, hopefully, right? And then we have an after party. So if you want to do Vegas right, do it with us. blackoutdivision.com.
It's so funny. Blackout and Vegas, they just tie together.
It's a bad combination.
It happens a lot of times. All right. Thank you, Raider Cody. We'll be back. Coming up, like I said, we have Brian Noe and also Phil Filippiano with Mitch Adams. That's all on the way right here on Inside the Patch.
We'll be back with more Inside the Patch on 1430 ESPN, your official home of the Las Vegas Raiders.